Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rob, this is Dr. Snakeoil. Welcome right back to another video. Now today I'm just doing a little bit of a let's draw. I thought I'd sit back, relax, and draw for a little bit instead of my regular let's play videos. Don't worry, I have been recording and working on editing, but today I thought I'd just sit back and relax. Today I'm going to be using some Prismacolors along with a mechanical pencil to try to draw my OC as best as possible and show you guys just my drawing process in general. I very much hope you guys enjoy, and let's get this video started. Now, first things first, when you're drawing, whenever I'm drawing, I always make sure to sketch, because if you want it to be as perfect as possible, you have to be able to sketch. It's just something given. Now, make sure you're and this can take as little or as long time as you need it to. If you want it to be more just essentially focused on colors, then don't sketch for that long. But if you want to make this more like get the right proportions and stuff, sketch for a longer time. Now, regularly I draw circles, little lines to show like placement of character parts, but since this person is such like whimsical features and proportions, it really didn't matter in my case for drawing that, because I can just add on and just draw those little parts separately and the proportions look right no matter what. A couple little touch-ups and details are always great to sketch at the beginning so you can figure out where to put them, such as my little feather or my pocket protector. And yeah, anyways, yeah, just drawing some random features. And one thing that I did was make his arms and are very disjointed, only connecting back at the hands, so it's really easy to draw that part where I don't have to worry about like placement of the elbow, because no matter what, it looks pretty decent. And from there, just start drawing some hands. And once again, as I said, since I'm drawing such a whimsical character, features and proportions don't matter as much as the average drawing, but still are important in a sense. Finishing up with some of the hand features and my shoes, I get going on getting ready for these final sketches where I can add my outline, touching up on the hands and making sure that everything is ready to go. From there, I start just refining some sketch lines and making sure that everything's up to ready to go, and I start along with a little black Prisma marker ready to start doing some of the outlines and planning where I'm going to put some shades. Now, one little thing and a little tip I have for all of you guys out there who are trying to do this: make sure to always have a backdrop piece of paper, or else you'll get these little spots like on my paper, that's kind of like on my paper right now. These little dots that happen whenever you don't have something behind it, where it just bleeds through to the next thing. From there, we're ready to go and add some little outlines. I start with my head, because when you're really drawing, make sure to always start with the head if you don't know where else to go, just because that's what really defines the characteristics of the character and can really freshen up the image. I go with, for the facial expression, I just went with one X and one down V, so honestly for my expression it's pretty simplistic and it really works out in my favor when I'm drawing it. But you can do whatever you want, take as little or as much time on a simple expression as you need to. I could definitely give more detail to a character like this, but for this I chose to be kind of cartoony and simplistic, just for both time's sake and other things. I started off with some other little outlines, cuffs on the hands, and outlining the belt and bell bottoms, and getting ready to just, you know, add some colors, shading, and light. Along with a couple, then I went on with a little details like the pocket protector or the pockets on my jeans, and went on to draw the hands. And this, like, is, if you've done the sketch well enough, where the background, it shouldn't be that hard to draw at all, just because you're just tracing at this point, which is much easier than actually thinking of it on the spot. Although, in some cases, if you don't sketch, that also works out, just because then you can just leave it at that, and then it opens up a little bit more creativity where you're not really thinking of what you're going to draw. Either way, it's definitely up to your own personal preference, and you can go from there. Yeah, so then from there I just rough out any edges or anything I need, and I get ready to sketch out some of the lighting. For this one, I wanted to go a little bit of stylistic lighting, so what I did was I took a light bulb and I put like, just thinking of where I'm going to put it in the picture, and from there I sketched out some lines. Now, for this specific picture, I didn't want this. White lighting is a great just alternative, and it's a great place to start because it's really, honestly, the easiest to draw, but I love doing colored lighting, and for this one I wanted something that seemed kind of like along with the theme of magenta and purple and my character. So what I did was I took my regular old magenta and I decided that's what I'm going to use for lighting, and in the end I think it turned out really cool. So after drawing some simple sketch lines for shading, I started adding it with my magenta marker and touching up on anything that I needed to. And so from there I just went with the colored lighting just to make it look a bit more stylistic and not realistic but more cartoony and artistic sense. I started with the hands because that's the first place that my eyes went. It doesn't really matter where you start with shading as long as you get the whole picture in. And this is specifically because like really all the shading is, unless you want some, unless there's a focal point of shading and lighting that you want to focus on, always do that first. But other than that, you can just go wherever to start from there. I just added some little tips to the laces and stuff just to make it look definitely stylized, and from there I was ready to go to the next step. Finally, I added some little lines and added anything in that might need magenta just flat out, even though it doesn't need shading or anything. And I would come back to magenta later, but for right now I was just adding the simplistic and simple things on the page. Up next, I took some gray marker and I started adding some little shadow lines. I took these shades and went around the picture, making some shadows simple and easy. So I started with a couple of shadows on the legs where I thought it worked best, and from there I shaded out the rest of the picture just with one shade of gray. Then I went along and added some of the gray areas that I actually was planning on making completely gray, like the gloves, and also part of the jacket and headpiece. I also, from there, went off at one point, continued to add a little bit of shading on shoes and stuff, and especially stressing shading on things that were going to be eventually white, because that's where it matters most to shade well. Then I ran off and managed to grab a little purple marker, and I just added some little very dull shades just to start out with. Now, layering markers, like, I definitely do that a lot due to the fact of both my markers, the way they work, and as well as the paper. But if you, say, have, like, Crayola, some just regular fine tip markers, well, then in that case, I'd suggest going as little shades as possible, just for the fact of the matter that your paper is probably going to evaporate in a very short period of time. From there, I added some little touch-ups on the feather over the head, and some little bits on the pants, just because I felt like the pants worked with magenta for this character. And yeah, from there I just added a couple little extra things of magenta for the actual face, which worked out in the long run for having a little backdrop to the darker shades that I was going for. Oh, also, one thing I forgot to mention is that the fact of the matter is I found out that these markers are really useful because they work to disperse ink as evenly as humanly possible. But like for something like sketchers, it just takes a longer time to get that, but if you're patient, you should be able to get the same effect no matter what kind of markers you're getting. I ran out of the room to go get something to shade with and eventually found a Unicord, which is glossy enough to not pick up any of the ink on a marker, and from there I went like this. Added a little bit of black, and then picked up that black with a gray marker and added it onto the character, making just a darker gray that would work it out. Now, this kind of loading your pen is way better with the more expensive markers, but you definitely can do it with some of the more fine tip stuff as well. I just continued along with this, continuously going around with anything that I thought needed darker shading, and we continued on from there. I made sure to go with a dark gray for the gloves, just because I wanted them to actually look like they're gray, not just shaded. And I decided against going gray on the coat, just because I felt like it looked better with that little gentle touch. I made sure to darken it as much as possible to give it that thick color. Now make sure to space this out more evenly over a longer period of time if you're planning on using some cheaper markers. From there, I added a couple little black outlines just to accentuate some of the more important shadows in the piece, just because currently some of the gray shadows had been a little bit outdone by some of the thicker colors. Now, this is totally stylistic. It gives it kind of that comic book feel if you go for the right way, but honestly, for me, I just wanted some more darker parts of this character. I added outlines to some of the eye parts and anything I really wanted to stand out within this piece, along with a couple of lines in the shoes. I went back with a bit of some gray, making sure to add anything I needed to get as much of a thick color as possible, and trying to go all the way around the piece, getting it that even tone. From there, I added some final details like points on the feather, along with a couple other things like just little points within that feather and some other things I'd forgotten, like shading on the pants or on the hands. Also, a little apology for such a shaky camera. If I haven't mentioned before, I literally use this. I'm using my webcam propped up on a line of some yarn that's being held up by my dresser and part of my wall, so that hopefully explains how wiggly it is. Finally, I went back and touched up on anything that I missed before, right after I added my title. Now, for me, I love adding titles to my stuff just because I feel like it gives that kind of like introduction to OCs, especially with pictures that are OCs or little character designs and stuff like that. But honestly, if you don't want to, just don't. Honestly, for anything that I've suggested in this piece, make sure to do it the way you want. Because no matter what, it's really just your art, and any of the things that you don't want to follow within this instruction guide, don't. And there we go, we're finally done. I hope you guys enjoyed, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on this video, and let me know if you want to see something more like this. I'm currently working on recording some videos, and I'll get those out as soon as I possibly can. And I'll see y'all later.